In this video I'm going to be looking at the outro strategic planning and how do you take part in strategic planning exercises, how do you play, so to speak, and then how do you write it up, or how do you reflect on it, sort of exercise, and the importance of the learning you can take from taking part in a strategic planning exercise and why that is important. So, what's the first steps you need to take when you're doing this? Well, the first step you need to take is get together with the groups and organisation, the people you're going to be working with. Any strategic planning is going to require you to work with other people. And for that you need to understand how people are going to be working together. There are various theories and models you can look at, and they will be available elsewhere in videos, some of which I'm making, such as Tuckman, and there are certain ways of looking at how you work together, such as Belden. And these are things that you need to be important and you need to consider, and consider elements of leadership. I would suggest that at the very beginning you also need to put together some sort of plan as to what it is you entail to work at. How are you going to work together? What are people's roles going to be doing? It is very important, whether it is formally assessed or not, that you keep a diary if you wish to learn from what happens during your strategic planning exercises. So please do make sure that you keep a diary so you can gain understanding as to what it is you'll be trying to achieve, what it is that is going to be a major element of the work that you're doing. Please try and work out what it is you should be doing during each period of operation in which you are going to be working. Choose for each period some sort of model or exercise you're going to implement. For instance, you might choose to use the 4 links theory or something like that. Work on it together as a team, as a group. Make sure that you can get the practice to make it up. Write it up as a group. As part of your decisions, as part of the decisions you decide to make this week, make sure you include elements of the theories and the models that you have used in this week. But alongside this, you must keep an individual diary, individual reflection diary, so you are learning as an individual while the group is learning and the memory of the group is being maintained. Group memory is very important, and you will be using journals, you can use various blogs, etc. to keep a group memory as well as an individual memory, which will be very useful for you as you go forward. When you come to the end, you can then go back to both the group memory and the individual memory, and you can note the models you used and how you used them. Remember, never just draw a picture of the model as you would see it in the textbook. The whole point is to synthesize ideas from theory and practice. So put the ideas, put what you did into the model. So look at the process you undertook, describe the outputs, describe how it went, describe what's going forward, and then, of course, the key element is having made a descriptum, which is descriptive reflection, which is the very minimum you need to do in order to be successful. You then need to go further, you need to make a full reflection on the process. And the best way to reflect the process is ask yourself a series of questions about the process, about what actually happened, and see what answer you can come up with. Ask yourself, did you come up with a good answer? So that's the first point thing. Did you achieve what you want to do within the strategic exercise you're undertaking? Then ask yourself, what contribution was made by the model? Remember the philosophy? All models are wrong, some models are useful. That's effectively what you're asking yourself here. Did the model give you the full answer? Was it just do the model, implement the solution, no problem? Did it give you some ideas but needed changing? Did it sort of guide you in the right direction, but then actually you needed to start to think back how exactly have I done this, what have I done wrong, what have I done right, etc., and put them together? Or was it actually a red herring? Did it lead you in the wrong direction? Was it just not at all useful? These are the questions that are important. And by doing this, by judging the model, you can improve the model. This is the art of synthesis. So what could you have done better? How could the model have been better? Consider yourself almost as rewriting the model. Don't necessarily write for every week, just try and keep some notes as you go through, give you some idea of doing that. In a full final report, you should be illustrating what you achieved and how you achieved it and what you learned. You shouldn't necessarily use a complete diary report on everything you did. Important then question is ask yourself what was relevant for the group. Elsewhere you can find videos and information on things like Tuckman, on things like groupthink, which are all important. Have a look at those and see how these work with the group. So the important question is, did the group help? Do you think you'd have made decisions the right way? Did the diversity in the group help? Do you think you'd been better off having all the same people, the same background, or do you think it was better to have a mixture? Which one of them worked for you? It may also be true to say that actually this can depend on the timing. Maybe early on it's better to be from the same background, maybe later on you see the advantages in having people there with different ideas. This is up to you. You're trying to judge it from experience. Would you be better off on your own? Do you think you could have made a much better decision, much better progress without other people in the group? It's an individual decision maker. Had you got your structure right at the beginning? Do you need to restructure it at all? Did you change structure during the course as you learned how to approach it? Also, it's a question, if I started now, knowing what I know, what would I do differently? And also wonder whether there was any underlying issues that came up again and again over a week. That can be a sign of a weakness in the group. If some things keep coming up again and again, it also can be a sign that somebody does not feel they're being heard and does not feel that their needs are addressed. Okay. Also ask yourself about how long you committed to this. Did you spend enough time on this strategic exercise? Did you give it the thought it needed? Remember, rationality is bounded. You're never going to know everything, so did you actually learn enough to make good decisions? Or you spent too much time, maybe you spent yourself arguing around in circles, and it became impossible for you to actually achieve what you were trying to achieve. But you've been better guillotining it and making decisions after 2 hours, perhaps, in each meeting. Yeah. So were you able to limit discussions? You cannot know everything, you cannot understand everything. The nature of boundary rationality is you have to make a decision within the limitations you are given. Yeah. So that's the important thing, is that, do you accept boundary rationality? Do you push back against it? People push back against boundary rationality all the time and spend far too long talking and far too little time thinking and making decisions. Sometimes you really have to accept the fact that to delay is to lose. Okay. So we'll be trying to run a game, perhaps an experience, a strategy experience, through some other actual implementation of the real strategy that takes place. So that there are things that you must do at this point. Make sure you knew what you were going for. You could have had some secret objectives were only known to you and the games master, but you could have others that were more open, that everyone could know about. That's how it realities work. People often say that following the strategy is important, but in fact the strategy as published may not be the strategy as implemented. That differentiation may tell you what the real strategy is of an organisation. It may also be poor implementation. You have to make a decision on which you think it is. Yeah. Once you have decided what your clear objectives are, you need to make a clear decision based on them. So maybe you need to build bases, maybe you need to offer aid, maybe you need to negotiate with the government. These are all decisions that you need to make, but they must be aligned with what your strategy actually is. Remember, the game is dynamic. You cannot ignore the other groups. What they do affects you, what you do affect them. That is the whole point. In the real world, it is the same. There will always be a law of unintended consequences and implementation clashes between different groups. So think also not just about the way the game works, not just the strategy works, but think also about the way the group dynamics work. So the rest of this conclusion, the way you conclude your work towards this module, the way you conclude your learning on the strategic experience, I think you should break it down to 2 parts. These parts roughly correspond to strategikós, stochastic, and Antanaclastic, stochastic, the strategic thinker, the reflective thinker. Strategic thinker, look at how the theoretical strategic models were used. Did they help? Did they hinder? How did you implement them? Was there anything that got in the way of you using them properly? Did you have a lack of understanding, perhaps, or a lack of knowledge? Think about how this might have been throughout the course, or how it might have been with other things that might have stopped you from working on them. It's very important that you understand that. But then you should think also perhaps anti-classically. Think about in the way that you might approach things. When you leave this course and do strategy in the future, how might you use it? How might you use the experience of this module, of this course, of this strategy experience? Will you think you'll still use the models and processes? Will you actually change them and adapt them? Will you use the synthesis, the art of synthesis we talk about when you take theory and practice and bring them together? How did it work as a group? How did it work as an individual when doing strategy? What were the important dynamics about it? Or will you actually feel that now is the time to adopt a much more flexible approach into the way things are done? Thank you for listening.